Welcome back to No Hair, All Heart. I'm your host, author Mookie Spitz, reading from Jonnie Fazoolie and the Transfinite Reality Engine. We are on section 17. You can follow along on page 111 of the paperback first edition. It's also available on Kindle. It's free on Kindle Unlimited if you want to add it to your queue. I'm not sure what page that is because you can adjust the fonts and the margins. I should just do an audio book, right? Just make that available. I'm leaving all of these on my podcast. I guess I'm just practicing. I'm really having fun reading through the book. I found a few typos, so I kind of fix them in the master document. Minor ones, did a pretty good job here. I had help from Michelle Waugh. I always mispronounce her name. I always call her Michelle Woe. So Michelle Waugh, I finally learned how to pronounce her name. And she actually, I had an editor. She read every 3-line paragraph. She found a missing period. She suggested that I add a comma. And she also made insightful observations about the story flow and some passages that didn't make that much sense to her. And I did some rewrites based on her feedback. So kudos to her. And now reading it aloud is super fun. I'm finding a few more. For example, in the prior episode, I had actually typed Large Hard-On Collider, the LHC from CERN. It's the largest particle collider in the world. It's where they did discover the Higgs particle. And it's actually the Large Hadron Collider because it collides the big heavy particles, smashes them together, and sees what's left, so to speak. There is new research, by the way, in muon accelerators, which is the heavier electron. The Large Hadron Collider, by definition, combines composite particles. And then when they slam into each other, they break into pieces. Now, that's messy. So you know how those bubble chambers burst with all those particles apparently skittering off in all sorts of directions? We measure them indirectly, of course, and computer modeling, et cetera, et cetera. There's a raging debate even how we measure these particles. There's a raging debate as to exactly what the hell particles are. Quantum field theory, QFT. Most people don't know this, but the reigning paradigm in fundamental physics, particle physics, with obvious relevance for cosmology, is that our entire universe is permeated by quantum fields. They're distinct, different kinds of field with energy distribution across the entire universe. And where the field energy is higher is where you find, air quote, particles. So what the hell actually is a particle? Well, according to quantum field theory, it's a probability distribution of energy. And when you build up energy, a lot of energy, in a very small space, which is essentially what these particle colliders do, then these fields are measurable and manifest as these particles. Now, a hadron is a composite particle, namely a proton. And when you hurl these around at nearly the speed of light and then slam them into each other, then they burst into their requisite quarks. And then all these other particles are created because there's so much energy in that explosion of these heavier particles slamming into each other. I digress. But the muon accelerator they're talking about, the electron doesn't have constituent particles. It's in the standard model as its own elementary particle. So when you slam an elementary particle into another elementary particle at tremendous energy, it's a lot less messy because there's nothing inside all on in there. It generates all of these virtual particles sheerly as an output of the energy, and who knows what qualities of these elementary particles. And that's where it's at. I think that's cool, but it's really, really hard to do that. And I can't believe I just went on this subject for 5 minutes, but I just felt like it. So lucky you. Anyway, what triggered this little tangent here? I accidentally wrote large hard-on collider, and when I was reading it, I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I typoed that." And then I realized that I made a bunch of changes to the names of scientists throughout this book because I don't want to get sued for libel. So I changed names of casinos, businesses, individuals. So not wanting to upset the folks at the Large Hadron Collider, I'm leaving in the typo Large Hard-On Collider, which actually perfectly fits with the theme of Basine's frustration with this male-dominated, testosterone-oozing, paper publishing tribe of folks, to the point I made in the prior section, copying Albert Einstein's lead at not really experimenting at all and just doing a bunch of math and writing a bunch of papers thinking that the keys to the universe are between their ears. So there you have it, folks. Anyway, a part of me wants to just delete this entire bloviation, but you know what? I'm leaving it because this is part of the fun, and it's now episode 17. So it's good to shake things up every once in a while, and I like rolling with my mood. And so does Basine Felderhassen, as we will soon see. So anyway, picking up where we left off. Welcome to Live Demo. The unexpected commotion has killed her petite mort, disrupted her autoeroticism, and piqued her curiosity. She pulls herself together without looking like she's doing so and takes a look. The state change is almost worth the hassle when she is surprised to see none other than Dr. Stephen, my kind of science Fulcrum, trundling out from the wings and taking center stage. Round-faced, bespectacled, horseshoe hairline, wearing his standard button-down shirt, casual trousers, and tennis shoes, the child prodigy and often controversial wunderkind waves. Guile, she thinks, a breath of computer science, fresh air. With insufficient experimental data available in the real world, why not create some through sophisticated and nuanced simulations? The universe is discrete, he opens, Basine figuring it's his way of saying hello, and obeys fundamental laws, best described in the language of computer programs that can emulate reality. She notices that the press are also in attendance and animated, rare for a conference when front-page-worthy science news hasn't happened since that Higgs discovery forever ago. Proving the Turing completeness of a cellular automaton was the first step. Having demonstrated their ability to create a universal computer, I will now generate a Boltzmann brain. Ich glaub, ich spinne, shouts Basine, her surprise surprising even herself. Loosely translated, it means, I believe I'm a spider, implying, I think I'm going nuts. Now, apropos. What the F indeed? The press also sensed something unexpected and potentially big here, even if not having the slightest clue what a Boltzmann brain is or how Fulcrum intends to create it. A bold statement, leaping from computing any calculation to computing a conscious mind with memories is quite the jump. Either it'll work or it won't. Whatever that it is, here they go. Of black velvet curtain parts and a computer screen unfurls. Prepare yourself for a real-time demonstration of evolutionary emergence, he declares, culminating in consciousness. Fulcrum's ranting, but implying more than just slides to come, appeasing her for now. His work bridges the gap between theory and experiment, pure math, yet simulating actual processes. The dynamic signal bursts with samples of Fulcrum's signature cellular automata patterns, code self-replicating and destroying cells, generating highly complex emergent structures. Behold, Rule 110, he announces, the quivering hypnotic construct, starting at the top midpoint, triangles within triangles, diagonally filling the space like robotic ants at an infinite picnic. Every computer calculation ever done, being done, and ever to be done can also be generating using this simple code, he boasts, fumbling with the remote, finding his footing, making his move. Mind-blowing that a binary cellular automaton with only 8 possible input configurations generates localized structures that carry and transform data sufficient to emulate all computation. Basine is now actually intrigued, as is the peanut gallery of establishment theoreticians who dig on the math and the dugout full of experimentalists who marvel at the processing power. Why stop there? He asks rhetorically. Basine smirks. Sure, Stephen, why? The AI revolution has delivered the power of the transformer models fueled by super fast processing chips. Rule 110's progeny vanishes, replaced by intricate matrix math. I have taken the next logical and inevitable step, using automata to not only simulate nature, but an emergent mind. Rounds of applause along with palpable skepticism. Basine notices the Yoda of string theory himself, Ed Smitten, wiry and gaunt, long-faced and high-foreheaded, lurking a few rows up. She feels sorry for Ed, string theory going bust, even though the transcendent genius won the Fields Medal and continues to get oohs and ahs from both the mathematics and physics tribes. Where's his minions? Macarena, also from Stanford, is nowhere to be found, but after a neck stretch and lean in, Basine sees John Schmantz from Caltech. Even Leonard Susskind sits nearby. What brings so many senior members of the boys' club here is the biggest mystery of all. She can't remember such an all-star ensemble since the second superstring revolution of the mid-90s. Once masters of the multiverse, their reign is coming to a close. Smitten has implicitly admitted it, unable to crunch those absurd 13 dimensions back into Einstein's modest space-time 4. Sure, the replacement of point particles with vibrating strings remains the only theory successfully taming infinity, but at the price of predictions at energies beyond our ability to verify them. Untestable thought experiments, devoid of experimental evidence, strangle the field. The latest theories of everything only exacerbate the decades-long grand unification failure. Now even the top dogs are feeling the heat, making this gaggle of stringers desperate for a breakthrough. They were pre-GPT fans of Infinitica, Fulcrum's math program, but never bought into his theories. The high priests of the string theorist tribe have assembled. So where are the blasphemous and usurpers? Ah, she spies Jonathan Oppenheimer, deacon of the Random Gravity Church. Bring it on. At least his theories are purported to be testable. Sooner or later, somebody will crack the quantum gravity nut, perhaps by redefining the entire problem like Jonathan has. Her head aches. Gravity, space-time itself, probabilistic at its core? Basine considers that a stretch, but appreciates the original non-string thinking. What's at the heart of reality? Laughter in the dark? Between theory and experimentation are Fulcrum and his team, she admits, exemplified by their hypergrid models getting closer to getting rid of absolute space and time together. Boys being boys, physicists have dismissed much of their work as ad hoc, while cosmologists consider the whole approach irrelevant, even after accommodating for the Lorentz invariance. Despite the non-stop quibbling, all these worlds collide within, like everything else these days, artificial intelligence. Basine is convinced even the top theoreticians fear for their jobs. Taken together, the mess that is fundamental physics seems analogous in many ways to the West's political disaster, the illusion of grand unification akin to the fatuous end of history. The victory of liberal democracy was short-lived, if it happened at all. Male heroism versus feminization is the zeitgeist here, too. Might undiscovered physics be the new left? The path forward, as usual, will likely be in front of our noses, enabling at least the first steps. Basine thinks Fulcrum is onto something here by blending theory and experiment with code. Imagine a Hilbert space of infinite dimension, elaborates Fulcrum, setting the stage. Given endless time and non-zero thermal energy, infinite brains must spontaneously generate. If our universe continues to expand forever, then infinitely many, fully formed, memory-loaded brains must eventually come into existence, begging the question of who we are. Hold on, though. Data suggesting that the cosmological constant might not be constant would torpedo an infinitely expanding universe expanding toward infinite velocity. But who's counting? The Boltzmann brain paradox, he continues, which posits that randomly generated brains, conscious observers, arise unprompted within a vast, thermalized universe, is forced. Exaggerated yawn. Her polished fingernails flit against long, dark eyelashes. Basine can't help but be a hypercritical brat again, until her curiosity is again piqued when her ears tune into, instead, a solution to the measure problem within a transfinite multiverse is to assume the evolution of a Boltzmann brain, rather than its spontaneous and instantaneous formation in toto. She never thought of that. The idea of a conscious mind popping into existence from sheer chance seemed like pure speculation, until she hears this convincing Darwinian natural selection kind of idea. What if, instead of the thermal backdrop of space-time spontaneously generating an entire mind, complete with memories, the conditions for evolution become manifest? Brilliant! She doesn't believe it, but concedes giving Fulcrum serious kudos for this simple but potentially transformative idea. Easier to imagine Lego pieces than the completed Taj Mahal. Sure, Fulcrum has done what Fulcrum usually does and redefined the terms, changed some of the rules of the game. But who's to say, let alone prove, that the game can't be tweaked? Bottom line, the probability of a fully formed sentient brain with set memories popping into existence is way lower then the environment within which it evolves popping into existence. Along with that assumption, posit continuity of a spontaneously evolved mind from one instant to the next. Rather than vanish, the thing is a thing, physical, causal, with extended duration. And if she's reading Fulcrum in the room correctly, then within minutes, they're all going to see a simulation of that evolutionary process utilizing AI algorithms and super fast computing power. Even Eric Weinstein, a bigger critic of string theory and outlier of the particle physics establishment than Basine, is eager to see what Fulcrum's team has up their always provocative sleeves. Are you ready? Teases Stephen. The parameters are set. The recursion random, but according to set rules which also evolve, selectively based on weighted success-fail criteria set in the AI. If Basine understands this, iterative steps learn from each generation to the next. Processes not imposed externally, but through emergent phenomena, a consequence of the parameters. The conference hall goes silent. The reporters, who are usually bored and jittery, are attentive and quiet. Fulcrum and his crew confer in whispers as they make last-second tweaks to the tech. The pomp and pageantry of it all, computer science and physics, the hard and deep stuff, at least become interesting. Bravo! Basine sits back to watch the show, but gets encumbered by a big afro. In front, a couple rows up, not far from Ed and Eric, sits a heavy person with a hemisphere of hair so large and thick that most of the lecture and stage are eclipsed. Black is beautiful, baby. Basine delights in not being able to see anything, so searches for her noise-canceling AirPods to not be able to hear anything either, until second-guessing herself and her chronic cynicism. Maybe she should get over herself already. Still traumatized by how institutional research and the academy treated her, she wonders if her fearless realism is tinged by maudlin remorse. The hash map simulates an ancient, exponentially expanding thermodynamic hypersphere, narrates Fulcrum. Fluctuating entropy noise is generated via false vacuum decay analogs. The conference room lights dim and the display screen lights up with cellular automata in vibrant, explosive patterns. Larger, more complex structures emerge from smaller, simpler ones. Each pixel holds a complex state vector, storing energy level and chemical composition, he continues. Local memory and signal history manifest as cross-generational gene expressions. Patterns shrink as the view exponentially expands. Billions, trillions of iterations per second, recursive rules selectively evolve with each generation, blossom into colorful outputs. Higher order emergent patterns form, featuring replication with variation, signal propagation networks, self-repairing clusters, interactive memory depth, and mutation tracking, he narrates. Discernible elements appear, take on first-level macro properties with their own rules that feed back off their own behaviors and those of their neighbors. Second level, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Long-range data integration, predictive loops, and recursive modeling drive the minimum viable complexity, environmental abstraction, and temporal stability across multiple generations. Seemingly random objects, real and imagined, possible and impossible, beautiful and ugly, swirl, coalesce, disentangle, vanish, and reappear in various orientations, sizes, and colors. Was that a spoon? an origami crane, fossilized snail, broken cassette tape, an exotic island with dragon blood trees and limestone spires burning sand, daguerreotype of a doorknob. The gap between simulation and reality is instantiation, the physical expression of Kant's synthetic a priori. 1 plus 1 equals 2 is by definition true, but a red book can instead be a green book. Epistemology be damned, but a way to prove a red book is by creating it. AI holds the promise of many things, good and bad, arguably the most profound being validation of our existence. Imagine simulating the totality of your mind. The Cartesian, I think, therefore I am, is at the heart of Western ontology, evolving with AI to, I passed the Turing test, therefore I am. William James would approve. The difference that makes no difference is indeed no difference. The ghost in the machine can either be an everlasting soul or residue of a probability matrix. Fulcrum points to the spontaneously generating shapes. Bootstrapped complexity, fueled by randomized entropy gradients and evolving algorithms, culminates in proto-consciousness. The audience audibly gasps as a neural substrate spontaneously forms, rapidly displaying adaptive plasticity expressed through a dynamic, self-referential network of weights and topologies. Gauging levels of sentience is tricky, adds Stephen, gaping at his own creation, as assessed by Shannon entropy, Lempel-Ziv, and Kolmogorov complexity estimators, and direct interaction. The evolving neural substrate, ENS, triggers its own self-organization loops, recursive agentic protocols generating multi-generational constructs and their extensible analogs. Determining exactly when high-order, low-entropy patterns display self-reflective and predictive behaviors characteristic of a conscious mind, he says, is part scientific, part philosophical. A mesmerizing melody, akin to a child's lullaby, pitch-shifted, with deep delay and quivering tremolo, reverberates throughout the conference, an eerie siren song awaiting a defiant reply. So far excited and inspired by the incremental success of his demo, Fulcrum pauses and is visibly jarred by the unexpected sonic overlay to the entire experience, playing out in real time. The audience, unfamiliar with the planned trajectory of the digital performance, assumes the rhythmic, haunting sounds are a part of the demo and move their bodies to the smooth groove. But hold on, visuals of the ENS are becoming distorted with color anomalies and texture corruption, neural nets failing with glitched fragments, and light sources reversing polarity. Fulcrum switches channels on his headset and gesticulates wildly to his crew, who confirm shader pipelines have begun rewriting visual logic and VRAM frame stacks aren't purging. Despite apparent corruption of the rendering engine and possibly the GPUs, Stephen allows the demo to iterate unhindered for now, trillions of steps per second, ratcheting up into quadrillions. A few chaotic seconds later, the demo undergoes a state change, highest order, contiguous, and interconnected structures curiously morphing into various objects, and what looks like aroused. Basine leans forward, crosses her legs, touches herself again. She visualizes Kubrick's cowboy riding the hydrogen bomb out of the B-52's cargo bay. Yeehaw! Continue tomorrow.